Greetings, opera lovers. Live from Pittsburgh, it's Rona. On Monday evening, I was able to listen to the Metropolitan Opera's presentation of Verdi's masterpiece, Don Carlo, in the five-act version. As all of you know, I listen to these things to hear great singing and to hear beautiful music from the orchestra and chorus. But before I begin, I'd like to tell you that there are a few little interesting facts that I found they just piqued my curiosity about how international this opera is. It's based on real historic characters who lived in the 15th century in Spain. From a play by Friedrich Schiller, a German, Giuseppe Verdi, an Italian, wrote an opera with a French libretto. But last night we heard it in Italian, and in the cast, two of the main characters were played by Russians, one by an Italian, an American, a Korean, a Greek, and the conductor was French-Canadian. So I thought all of that added up to quite a lot to think about how this story and about how opera in general can cross so many cultures and speak to us today. Since I listen to these things for the singing, I have an opinion before the opera is going to even be broadcast about what I'm going to be hearing. And on Monday night, I was full of pleasant surprises. The main surprise was that I was actually planning on going but decided not to because I am not a fan of the way Miss Barbara Frittoli has been sounding of late. And she has a very important role in this opera, as do the other five principals. There are 6 major characters in this opera. You can't chintz on any of them. Well, my surprise is that Miss Frittoli sounded better than I had heard her in the last several years. Good enough to say that I thought she was more than acceptable. Her big final act aria, Tu che le vanità, or however it is correctly pronounced, was a little bit disappointing, but not too much. This is one of the hardest arias to sing for anybody. Speaking about arias, I always wait for the mezzo. She has 2 of the greatest arias, her aria in the garden and her aria O Don Fatale. And Princess Eboli was sung at the Met on Monday and through this run by a Russian who I had only heard once before in Anna Bolena. And I thought she was okay in that role. And she did a fine job as Eboli, but her voice just does not have enough bite as far as I'm concerned. And she petered out a little bit at the end of O Don Fatale, an aria which has to keep building and building. It's really one of a mezzo's greatest arias for a dramatic mezzo. Rounding out my surprises was the tenor, Young-Hoon Lee, who is South Korean, who I had heard not very long ago singing Don José in Carmen. I really didn't like him very much, although I thought he had an okay voice. Well, in Don Carlo, which is a thankless role for the namesake character, he sounded excellent. He started off just a wee bit shaky in the very, very beginning, but after that, I thought his singing was wonderful, and I really enjoyed his voice. He's got a very strong sound to it, a true Verdi tenor for those spinto tenor roles. Another surprise to me was that Ferruccio Furlanetto singing King Philip, which is, of course, absolutely you must have him sing this role, that it was his 35th anniversary at the Met. And I thought, ay, this is going to be a wobble fest. Well, guess what? He sang really well, surprised me. Before I go on to the other singers, I would just like to say a few extra words about his big, big aria and scene, Ella Jemima Mo, She Never Really Loved Me. Uh, because musically, I just find it to be one of the greatest pieces of composition for a solo voice. Mainly because it has this gorgeous introduction where the cello is featured, and the cello has its own melody, and the cello's melody doesn't change when the basso comes in and sings his melody. So actually, it's really like a duet for King Philip and the cello with the orchestra accompanying them. I always like to think that the cello is sort of like a heartbeat or a cry. It's a very rhythmic thing that's in the background, always reminding us of the anguish of Philip. I sometimes think this opera should be called King Philip and not Don Carlo. I think many operas have the wrong titles. It's too bad the composers did not discuss these things with me beforehand. Going on to more surprises, I was also not looking forward to hearing Dmitri Varsovsky sing Rodrigo. Why? Because I've heard him sing it so many times. I've heard him sing Rodrigo's arias to death. And also of late, I find him to be a little bit disengaged, and he was a little disengaged from the character. However, he sang excellently, and he still has that great breath that he's so famous for, and he can still call on it. Of course, I couldn't see him. He's gorgeous. I wish I could have, just for him. So those were my really positive surprises. That's a lot of good surprises for one evening. The parts I didn't know was how I would feel about Miss Gubanova, who I had only heard once. And also, I did not know anything about the person who played the friar. You'll have to excuse me, there's so much I had to write little cheat notes. He was played by somebody whose name is Christoforos Stamboglis. He's Greek. I thought his voice wobbled too much. Oh, I forgot one more surprise, and that was James Morris. I love James Morris. Yes, let it be known, I officially love him. He's a great singer and a great artist. He's done his time and done it well. But of late, he too has been suffering from wobbleism. But I thought he did very, very well as the Grand Inquisitor. What I expected was what I got in terms of greatness. I expected Yannick Nézet-Séguin to do a fabulous job bringing this opera together, and he did. Probably my favorite part last night, 2 nights ago, was when the chorus and orchestra did the auto da fe scene. It was so rhythmic. It was just so moving and thrilling, and I couldn't even see it, although I've seen this production, so I kind of knew what was going on. There are a couple of other things I'd like to say about the opera. This opera, like so many others, falls into the category of my husband's great synopses of all great operas. The boy and the girl fall in love. They're not supposed to. At the end, one or both of them die. Well, at the end of this opera, we know that Rodrigo dies because it's his death aria, but I'm really never sure about what happens to Carlo. It doesn't matter. However, as the evening went along, I felt that a little energy was being drained out of the performance, and perhaps that was just me as I was getting tired, because I was just listening to it and it was way past my normal bedtime. So kudos to everyone. It way exceeded my expectations. I also actually wanted to wait to read the reviews to see how my opinions would compare with the written opinions. I'm never influenced to say that I agree with them or disagree with them on purpose. But I will say that Mr. Tomasini, a critic who I greatly admire, thought that the singing was way better than I thought it was in general. As I say, I was surprised that the people I thought they were going to disappoint me did not, but I did not think that overall it was great singing. Except for Mr. Furlanetto in his great aria. Not only did he sing it well, he infused the text with so much feeling that it was just wonderful. And the big surprise for me, the tenor, who usually I could just as soon have the opera without him at all, he surprised me so much because I had just heard him and didn't like him, and now I liked him. So go figure. Okay, I'm not sure there are any more new operas that I'm really looking forward to this year at the Met, but soon the summer will be coming and we'll be getting all those live streams from Europe. Happy spring, everybody.